Welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. There's going to be a lot of background noise today. This is like take number 5 for just trying to get started. There's a bunch of kids playing, which is awesome. They're playing outside. They're playing together in a group. It's almost like the world is real and people can go out and be healthy again. We also have jets in the background because we always have jets in the background out here. And, lots of noise. Let's talk about education and population growth. So we're talking about population reduction. We're talking about pro-survival, pro-humanity ways to do this. And I haven't gotten... I think perhaps I've skipped over a few things. I tend to be the master of the obscure because of that. And if you don't have a survival drive, then things tend to fail. This is one of those nature things that people don't really like to grasp or seem to grasp. And if you don't have that pro-survival movement, if you don't have that idea of survival, of making things better, of increase, then things tend to go very poorly for you and your species. These drives are innate, they're biological, they come from millions and millions of years, or 6 days, of evolution and development. And it's a big deal. You can't erase that, okay? There's a lot of psychological programming people do, and this gets into the education and the indoctrination phase of this talk, but you can't beat biology. You can harness it, you can change it, you can do all sorts of things with it, but you can't actually beat it. So if you want a reduction in population, you have to make it pro-survival. You have to make it work with biology. And that's where you get into the idea. So you could consider it as a prosperity. Prosperity leads to fewer children, and that's kind of true, but kind of overly simplified. There are aspects to this where it's not just prosperity, and it's how you measure prosperity becomes a huge part of that. So I've been talking about education and opportunity, because prosperity doesn't mean the same thing to every culture or every moment in history. And right now, a lot of my audience is going to be coming from the West, which has been programmed with a type of consumerism that kind of goes into all of your thinking, including sociology, when sociologists talk about prosperity. Now, back to the education part again. We talked about opportunity yesterday. Education means the functional type of information to know, to be more informed about yourself, your choices, your ability to make decisions, your ability to manipulate your environment. Education increases opportunity, but education that is strictly a sort of cultural indoctrination or an ideological indoctrination. The idea that you're literally learning just that there was some current model interpretation, political interpretation of history, that's not education, okay? You need to be able to think clearly, apply a model of the world that is reasonable, meaning... Let me say that again. Apply a model of the world that is pragmatic, meaning that it works and that you can at least come up with some workable reasons why it works. They don't have to be accurate. They just have to be workable, okay? I'm not a huge fan of Jordan Peterson in the sense that he's extremely negative. Life is suffering and the goals in life is to overcome the suffering. But he's very good at some other things. He talks about useful. I'm not a utilitarian, but if your view of the world is useful, workable, then you have a functional education. And that's really the core other fork of this idea of population reduction. To reduce the population, in a pro-survival fashion, you need to have fewer, not no, but fewer children. And that drive for children needs to be harnessed and tuned. You can't eliminate it. You don't want to reduce it. You want to harness it and tune it. You want more child rearing and less child producing. Of course, birth control really helps with that. But the idea here, population growth control. We want to reduce the population, and we do. It's going to be ecologically a lot easier if we have a population that is somewhat less. Okay, I'm not going to suggest that we need to go back to 2 billion people or something. That I don't think that's even possible right now. But somewhat less. Certainly, if we can flatten that out, 8 billion's enough. We can terraform around 8 billion or 12 billion, but we don't really need a whole lot more. But in order to accomplish that, what we do need is to find humane, pro-human, pro-survival ways to decrease population. That means children need to be wanted, precious, desired, taken care of. You can get your biological drive satisfied through the social care of someone else's child. And I'm using all these words, and it's very difficult for me to use them accurately because they've been co-opted by ideological, I hate to say the word again, progressives, okay? You're not, when I say that there's a social input to a child's life, I'm not talking about socialism. I could easily be talking about your church. Whatever your social avenue is. I'm not talking about socialism. I'm not talking about helicoptering. I'm not talking about babying the kids. In fact, I think that is actually a problem we have right now. Insecurity and incapability. I watch people who have children accidentally. That's the only way I can phrase it. They believe that life is precious. They've been taught that belief, so they don't do abortion, but they don't understand consequences and behavior, and they're not mature enough to actually make decisions. And our society has produced these people deliberately. Okay, this is the education as indoctrination part, and that's not what we want. We do want intentional, I want to be a parent kind of stuff. But I'm not losing the thread. I'm just walking a fine line on how you talk about humanity. So I'm going to back up a little bit. Pro-human, pro-survival, population reduction requires functional education, real functional education, ability to apply to the world, to reality, manipulate reality, have it work, have it be pragmatically effective. And opportunity. The opportunity is key with the education. I separated these out into 2 videos, but I really probably shouldn't have. I should have just done that 45-minute massive video. The two go together. The more education, the more functional education you have, the more opportunity you have, even if your society is structured against your opportunity. It's hard to keep a free and educated man down. It just is. There's really no way outside of full-on prison camps, and even then, there's no way to keep a free and educated man down, because opportunities can be created and recognized in otherwise completely untenable situations. Of course, the point of this is that these two factors, the education and the opportunity, work together, and we're not completely sure of the mechanisms, but they work together to reduce the number of babies that are just popped out. And that's the only way to phrase it, is babies popped out. More intentional child rearing, more intentional child birth, more intentional creation of children. Okay. And that's a good thing. The more intentional it is, it seems like the less you have the kind of the bomb out of it. And it's perfectly fine. Some people are going to have families of 4 and 6, and that is okay. Some people are going to have families of 0, and that is okay. I'm not trying to say that this is a problem where if you're properly educated, you will only have one child. No, that's a prescription. That's using education as an indoctrination and a tool to control. Not the way it works. People do operate differently. And again, opportunity will mean something different to different people. And for some people, that's going to mean raising 6 children in an effective manner, like a seriously good, intentional fashion. And for some people, it's going to be being the ant. Like that's okay. Both ways work. The key to this is that increasing the education, functional education, and opportunity will result in a positive, negative population growth. A pro-survival, positive to humanity, negative population growth. I don't have any evidence, and I've been looking at this for a long time. I don't have any evidence that there is any other method that really works, that doesn't have downsides that are just immense. So we're done with the video series on this. This is a core element of my stumbling towards utopia, my environmental stance. Increase of opportunity, which includes liberty. You can't have one without the other. And the increase of education, which means an ability to functionally operate in your environment, in your head. Those are the keys to stabilizing and reducing global population. That's all I got. Stay sideways.